evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Williams, and I'm the CEO of the Planning Institute of Australia. And on behalf of the 3 design institutes, I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Australian Urban Design Award. Since 1996, when the Australian Urban Design Awards were created by the then Prime Minister Paul Keating's Urban Task Force, the Australian Institute of Landscape Architects, the Australian Institute of Architects, and the Planning Institute of Australia have come together as the 3 design institutes to present these prestigious awards. But firstly, I'd want to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, being the traditional custodians of the land where I live and work. I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. I honour their connection to this country and their deep care for the land and water. I would also like to acknowledge all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders participating in this event tonight. And I remind everyone that in the work we do, the Australia's First Peoples are not merely stakeholders, they are rights holders. Over the past 22 years, the Australian Urban Design Awards have communicated and celebrated the critical role of good urban design in the shaping of the nation and the collaborative relationships that underpin the successful development of the built environment. Tonight, we'll hear from each of the design institutes and each of the winners. But now, it's my delight to introduce Malcolm Snow, who is the chair of this year's awards judging panel. This is Malcolm's 2nd year in the role. Malcolm, as many of you would know, is an award-winning urban thinker and planner. Malcolm is the Chief Executive of the Canberra City Renewal Authority. This role follows a diverse career in leading major city revitalisation programs throughout Australia, Asia, and the United Kingdom. Previously, he's been Chief Executive of the National Capital Authority, Head of Design of the City of Melbourne, Director of international consulting firm Urbis, and CEO of the South Bank Corporation in Brisbane. So, I'm delighted now to hand over proceedings to Malcolm.
Thank you, David. I'm Malcolm Snow, CEO of the City Renewal Authority in Canberra. Before I give an overview of this year's entries, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from where I'm speaking, the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I also acknowledge the contribution they continue to make to our city and the wider region. It's been an honour and a pleasure to chair the 10-member jury for the 2020 Australia Urban Design Awards. On behalf of the sponsoring institutes, I'd like to thank all of my fellow jurors for their great contribution to this year's program. The role of juror is demanding but professionally rewarding. They are from the Australian Institute of Architects, Jacinta Sadler, Jeremy McLeod, and Laura Coburn. From the Australian Institute of Landscape Architects, Gareth Collins, Peter Marie Ashford, and Scott Hawken. And finally, from the Planning Institute of Australia, Lisa Riddle, Bill Chandler, and Diana Griffiths. Despite some nervousness about the impact of the pandemic on this year's program, I'm pleased to report that a total of 64 entries were received across the 4 award categories. Although this is down on 2019, what was particularly pleasing was the higher number of submissions in the leadership, research, and advocacy categories. Great ideas, well applied, can be just as transformative as built projects in the design of our urban environment. And the jury was impressed with the innovative thinking that was evident in the submissions received in these 2 categories. What was also encouraging was the prospect of how many of these research projects would translate into tangible urban design outcomes. We need to nurture this thought leadership, whatever our profession, for a common good. Disappointingly, there were very few entries from academia or researchers this year. This prompts the question, how can we sustain urban design research activity given its importance in helping to find and apply clever solutions to the wicked problems confronting Australian cities? those solutions can't all come from somewhere else. In the built project categories, there was a higher proportion of urban infrastructure related entries this year. This is not surprising given the surge in city infrastructure investment happening across all states and territories. The positive in this trend is how urban design thinking continues to shape the scope and delivery of these city shaping projects by being applied at the outset and not merely as an add-on to big engineering. The recognition of the importance of green infrastructure in cities also figured strongly this year, both at the local and also metropolitan scales. The challenges of climate change and urban resilience in how communities can adapt through good urban design in dealing with these issues will, I'm sure, continue to be a trend in future awards. Public space projects were again well represented in this year's entries. As our cities and towns return to some normalcy as we emerge from social isolation, it will be their public realm that provides the setting for us to reconnect and be revived as citizens. Notable in these categories was clear evidence of creative collaboration between different design professions, artists and scientists. The infusion of cultural meaning and place values, especially the recognition of First Nation history, was outstanding in several entries this year. On this point, the identification of the traditional land by entrants for their submitted projects was a great initiative this year and one which should continue. And now to the announcement of the 2020 Australia Urban Design Award winners. Built projects, city and regional scale. And the shortlisted nominations are CBD and Southeast Light Rail by Grimshaw and Aspect Studios in collaboration with the City of Sydney on behalf of Transport for New South Wales, supported by Randwick City Council in New South Wales. DY Town Centre Urban Renewal, Northern Beaches Council in New South Wales. First Creek Wetland, Taylor Cullity Lethlean, Jacobs Engineering, Paul Thompson, David Lancashire Design, Aquenta, AECOM, Carl Telfer and Camco Diadem in South Australia. Manjimup Town Centre Revitalisation, Shire of Manjimup in WA. Metro Northwest, Hassel in collaboration with Turpin, Crawford Studio and McGregor Westlake Architecture in New South Wales. And finally, Wentworth Point Town Centre by Scott Carver Architects in collaboration with Belergia Group in New South Wales. In this category, the judges have awarded one award and one commendation. And the commendation goes to CBD and Southeast Light Rail. The Sydney Light Rail project has succeeded in three significant ways. It has transformed the Sydney CBD and George Street, provided much needed new mass transit between the CBD, the southeast of Sydney, the sports stadiums and the University of New South Wales, and created opportunities for transit-orientated development in the south of the corridor. It has done these things in a challenging, constrained physical and political environment, with contextual sensitivity, design quality, and through a collaborative, multidisciplinary design process. The integration and design of the stations, the landscape, paths, stabling yards, open space, power supplies, bridges and tunnels have all been thought about carefully, added to by extensive stakeholder input and a commitment to positively contributing to the city and its built fabric. And the award goes to Metro Northwest. This groundbreaking rail project provides mass transit for the northwest area of Sydney and creates an urban structure for the growth of the metropolis. The potential of urban design can only be realised if all disciplines work together for a common goal. And on the North West Metro project, it is clear this has happened from the very start. The result is a whole-of-line integrated design outcome incorporating art, engineering, green infrastructure and architecture to create beautiful town centre stations and plazas and a context-sensitive piece of rail infrastructure. A light and colour-infused station integrated into the built environment of the Rouse Hill Town Centre, eucalyptus leaf forms to the village stations, shady public spaces with gardens and public art, tree-lined paths and cycleways, a sculpted viaduct providing panoramic views of the urban landscape for passengers, avenues of thousands of native trees, and an integrated connection to the North West Transitway are the hallmarks of this benchmark project for the Sydney Metro network.
Thank you. A project as monumental as North West Metro only achieves its objectives with the passion and tenacity of a very large number of people. And Sydney Metro, as the driving force behind the planning of this $7.3 billion project, deserve enormous credit for their vision and their wisdom. And our delivery partner, CPB John Holland, allowed Hassel to develop and to refine the design during the construction process and have left Sydney with a legacy of exceptional quality. And the Hassel team of over 200 architects, landscape architects, artists and collaborators were just extraordinarily inventive, flexible and resourceful in the face of so many challenges. And on behalf of the principals and staff at Hassel, thank you. This is a wonderful recognition from our peers.
You are watching the Australian Urban Design Awards for 2020. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you our first guest presenter. Please welcome the AILA National President, Sean Walsh.
I'm Sean Walsh. I'm the National President of the Australian Institute of Landscape Architects. G'day from Southbank in Brisbane as well. I'm really proud to say that I'm actually a town planner as well as a landscape architect. And it's great that PIA are coordinating these awards on behalf of architecture, urban planning, landscape architecture, because that's what urban design is about. It's about the crossroads of all our professions. It's really remarkable the work that we can do to actually work on climate change and public health, because these are fundamental issues that our society is facing at the moment. And these awards and the nominees really show what our combined professions are really capable of. And I thank all the nominations.
Built projects, local and neighbourhood scale. The shortlisted nominations are Darling Square, New South Wales, by Aspect Studios with Kengo, Kuma and Associates. Canberra, Australian National University in the ACT, by Aspect Studios in association with Lasnimo Architects, Colony 6, Civitas, Oculus Architecture and BVN Architects. Minderup Piazza and Men Street in Western Australia. Place Laboratory with City of South Perth, Iredale Peterson Hook, ETC, Stantec, NS Projects and Artists. The Rocks Laneway in Western Australia by Taylor Robinson Cheney Broderick with UDLA. University Square Stage 1 in Victoria by City of Melbourne City Design Studio. In this category, the judges have awarded one award and two commendations. The first commendation goes to
Minderup Piazza and Men Street. The jury was impressed with how this exuberant but high-impact public space improvement succeeds at both the precinct and site scales. With a key urban design objective of encouraging better public transport access to the Perth Zoo, it also makes a significant contribution to supporting the day and evening economies of the river foreshore, centred on Men Street. The project is distinguished by the quality of its landscape architecture, the creative collaboration between engineers, architects and artists, and importantly, the foresight of South Perth Council in recognising both the potential of this waterfront location and its contribution to the public life of the city. It sets a benchmark for other local authorities to emulate, particularly from an economic development perspective.
The second commendation goes to
The Rocks. The Rocks is about achieving a lot with a little. It connects the city to the sea, it connects its future to the past, and it connects its people to each other. The Rocks Laneway project is a city to foreshore pathway incorporating laneways, streets, and the original Rocks store, adapted to accommodate a new pedestrian lane and event space adjacent to the waterfront. Through retention of existing features, historical interpretation and creative expression, it sets a new precedent for regional infrastructure and urban renewal investment. This project is bold, engaging, incisive, inclusive, and realised in an incredibly simple and robust way.
And the award goes to
Darling Square. Darling Square has been thoughtfully imagined and designed to embrace the challenge of urbanisation by building a place for a growing and diverse community, anchored by a new landmark public building and a green market square as the focal point. Darling Square comprises a network of pedestrian-focused streets and laneways that function both as a destination and thoroughfare. New canopy trees provide shade and contact with nature and are a welcome addition to the city's urban forest. The Indigenous culture and language of the Gadigal people are brought to life through custom urban furniture and intricate fish-scale paving that abstractly represent the area's once present water and a narrative of flood and water flow. This project celebrates the everyday and the opportunity it offers to meet, eat and socialise in a new diverse community. Locals, international tourists, office and construction workers, nearby students and a growing nomadic workforce are seeking alternatives to the traditional office environment. Darling Square has been carefully curated through a series of meticulously designed, intimate public spaces that are deeply cognizant of the myriad of ways people inhabit and experience public space. This offers a new urban community and a backyard where daily life can extend into the public realm and where public life can unfurl.
Thank you to the jury of the Australian Urban Design Awards. We're absolutely thrilled that Darling Square has been recognised. Aspect Studios is coming to you as a representative of a very large team responsible for the success of this project. But of course, it is led and delivered by Lend-Lease and includes Kengo Kuma Associates. We're thrilled that Sydney-siders have warmly embraced this new public realm of the square and the laneways and the range of public facilities. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the 2020 Australian Urban Design Awards. Our next guest presenter is the Australian Institute of Architects National President. Please welcome Alice Hampson.
I'm Alice Hampson, National President of the Australian Institute of Architects. It's wonderful to be here, if only in a digital sense. Some of you may know that this November marks the Institute's 90th birthday. In fact, many of our chapters are much older. The chapters came together as a national body for the first general meeting in 1930. Although the Institute is the oldest organisation at the table, we nonetheless share common aspirations for the future with PIA and AILA, such as raising the quality of the built and natural environment for all Australians to enjoy, regardless of their socioeconomic background. In the end, I think we'd all agree that ultimately we seek to improve the health and well-being of all who live and work in our diverse communities. Spaces and places imbued with greater beauty, amenity and humane qualities penetratingly improve our cities, towns and rural landscapes. This year has certainly been one for the history books. It has been a challenging experience for all of us in the built environment community, but I am confident that our respective industries will recover from this crisis and continue to enrich our communities through good design. Australian design has a rich history and a bright future. By raising design standards in our towns and cities, the architectural profession, alongside other peak bodies across the disciplines of planning, landscape, and environment, can play a major collaborative role in shaping Australian communities. But I know you're all here with me now to hear tonight's awards, and so it's with great pleasure that I announce the next category of the award winners: Leadership, Advocacy and Research, City and Regional Scale. And the shortlisted nominations are Eastern Regional Trails Strategy in Victoria by Fitzgerald Frisbee Landscape Architecture, Reimagining Campbelltown City Centre Master Plan in New South Wales by Campbelltown City Council in partnership with Urbis, ACOM, Arcadis and Astrolabe. Sydney Science Park Master Plans in New South Wales by Aspect Studios with Matthew Pullinger Architect. Waianamatta South Creek Urban Typologies and Stormwater Management in New South Wales by Bly Tanner Architectus and Sydney Water. Yarra River Burrawang Strategy in Victoria by City of Melbourne City Design Studio. In this category, the judges have awarded 1 award and 4 commendations. The first commendation goes to
Reimagining Campbelltown City Centre Master Plan. The master plan for the Campbelltown City Centre is extensive and ambitious, underpinned by realistic and committed actions to manage rapid population growth in this key strategic location. Processes that captured broad engagement with community, including the Campbelltown Aboriginal community, the Dharawal people, is reflected in the outcomes of the plan. The identification of catalyst projects focusing on public space and community infrastructure, combined with joint council and state government projects, will transform this part of the Western Parkland City from one that has struggled with physical and social challenges to one that will be an exemplar of outer suburban living and working. The master plan presents the way forward in a lively and accessible document. The jury was impressed by its leadership in the process applied, its vision and the tangible actions presented.
The second commendation goes to
Sydney Science Park. For many years, Western Sydney has been seen by some as the periphery of Sydney's eastern edge, a vast plain to randomly locate the additional needs of the harbour city. But in recent years has come an understanding, long known to the people of the Eora Nation, that the true Sydney encompasses the whole basin, created by a ripple in the Great Dividing Range, the Pacific Ocean, and the great watercourses of the Hawkesbury, Nepean and Georges rivers. Western Sydney has become the Parkland City, in balance with the Harbour City and the Central River City. It has started to develop its own character, reflecting the unique topography, vegetation, watercourses, climate and heritage of the area. Sydney Science Park is part of this emerging Parkland City, and its built form is designed to respond to the Australian landscape and be a key element of a new modern city supporting walking, cycling, a connection to nature and a close interplay between work and home. It weaves green infrastructure into living and working, providing shade, a healthy environment, recreation, a new livable urban conurbation realised through an exemplary demonstration of well-executed urban design, process and practice.
And the next commendation goes to
Waianamatta South Creek Urban Typologies. The aspirations for a cool and green parkland city for Western Sydney require a massive step change to current planning and design practice. Sydney Water has taken a proactive role in developing a strategic approach for contemporary, integrated water cycle planning for Western Sydney. The Wienermatta South Creek Urban Typology Project presents a solution that responds sustainably and sensitively to the contemporary challenges of climate change, drought, and population pressures. 1 million people and 500,000 additional local workers are expected to call Western Sydney home in the coming decades along Wienermatta Creek, which flows into the Hawkesbury Nepean system. The urban typologies proposed establishes a sustainable approach to greenfield urbanisation with a focus on the water cycle, urban greenery, amenity, walkability, and access to shared community space. These typologies demonstrate best practice in response to the need for cities to plan for increasingly hotter summers while achieving quality urban density.
The last commendation goes to
The Yarra River Birrarung Strategy. Once regarded as a large open drain, the Yarra River has now long been recognised as a key asset and living feature of Melbourne. The heart of the city now embraces the river, but in an inconsistent and often hard-edged way, sometimes still reflecting its previous drainage function. The Birrarung strategy aims to return the city centre reaches of the river to a more naturalistic landscape that will re-engage the community and the city form with its original state, while enabling greater interaction and access to the river and its edges. Improvements to the riverside paths and abutting activities will provide a more relaxed and inviting interface with the adjoining spaces and greater variety of community use. The strategy's leadership in creating an accessible, naturalised and well-designed waterway and city-edged activated spaces is to be commended.
And finally, the award goes to
Eastern Region Trail Strategy. The Eastern Region Trail Strategy is an exemplar of cooperation and coordination across 7 municipalities, 22 trails and a multitude of landowners and managers to achieve a major improvement to the integration of off-road trails throughout the northeastern region of Melbourne. The strategy addresses several significant impediments to achieving high quality and connected active transport routes in large cities, multiple responsibilities, lack of coordination and varying standards. The trail strategy involved extensive engagement with a wide range of stakeholders and authorities, research and detailed site analysis demonstrating commitment to excellence in its process. The outcome is a practical and realistic planning framework that will enable fundamental changes to active transport movement, including cycling, running, walking, equestrian routes and paddle sports in this region of Melbourne. The strategy provides an outstanding example to other regions of cities in ways to achieve major urban design improvements to access in movement, recreation and community health objectives.
FFLA was rapt to have been shortlisted for the Australian Urban Design Awards, so naturally we're ecstatic to have won. Thanks to the 7 councils involved in the project for making what it was, and Sport and Rec Victoria as the funding partner. Thank you.
We trust you're enjoying the 2020 awards. Our last guest presenter of the evening is the Planning Institute of Australia National President. Please welcome Steve O'Connor.
Good evening. I'm Steve O'Connor, the National President of the Planning Institute of Australia. Very pleased to be here this evening to present the Australian Urban Design Awards with our fellow institutes, the Australian Institute of Architects and the Australian Institute of Landscape Architects. Together, these 3 institutes have been presenting these awards for many years, but this has been a particularly difficult year for obvious reasons with the advent of COVID-19, which no one predicted and no one expected. Nonetheless, we've been able to bring these awards to you, which we're very proud of. It is now my pleasure to introduce the last category for this evening.
Leadership advocacy and research, local and neighbourhood scale.
And the shortlisted nominations are ANU Acton Campus Master Plan and Design Guide in the ACT, ARUP in collaboration with Urban Inquiry, Lovell Chen, Mantra Studios, Karen Wright Projects, John Wardle Architects, and Turnberry Consulting. Inhabit Place Auditing Tool. In the ACT, Inhabit Place. Townsville University Hospital Master Plan in Queensland. Hassel, Townsville Hospital and Health Service, Turner and Townsend Think, John Staff, WSP, and Inside Out Architects. Transforming South Bank Boulevard Concept Plan in Victoria. City of Melbourne City Design Studio. Wilkinson's Point in Tasmania. Fender Castor Ladis, Irene Inc. and Oculus. In this category, the judges have awarded 2 awards. The first award goes to
ANU Acton Campus Master Plan and Design Guide. This visionary master plan will guide the transformation of an introverted university campus into a city centre precinct that reinstates one of the Griffin's original ambitions in their national capital plan. Previously lacking a coherent vision for its future physical development, the ANU and its consultants have formulated a comprehensive and coherent urban design framework that capitalises on the positive campus attributes while deftly introducing new spatial, environmental and access strategies that, over time, will strengthen the university's standing both globally and locally. The accompanying design guide thoughtfully translates the ambitions of the master plan into a key reference source for informing detailed architectural design briefs for key sites, which will unify the look and feel of the campus without compromising important heritage and environmental values. The jury was impressed with the stakeholder engagement process deployed by the consultant team and to the university's recognition of the importance of its ongoing investment in a high standard of urban design in how its campus evolves.
Thank you. We're delighted to have won this award. I'd really like to thank all of our team members and consultant collaborators, and I'd particularly like to thank ANU, who've been a fantastic client to work with and have embraced the breadth and vision of this master plan with incredible dedication and application and seriousness.
The second award goes to
Transforming South Bank. Sometimes a project is so simple and obvious that you wonder why it doesn't happen more. Foreshore Drive is one of those. Very simply, a wide multi-lane road in the CBD of Melbourne has been turned into a 2-lane street flanked by a linear park and a tree-lined walkway and cycle path. While the catalyst for this has been some traffic management changes, it could equally be an alternative transport option or simply a recognition that the total movement of people down this busy city road can be matched or even exceeded by thinking differently about the transport modes that use it. This project is not only a significant improvement to city livability and street space, but also a reminder for designers to keep pushing for change and to thinking differently about the use of our contested public land. This can only come about through different professions and organisations working together to a common goal.
I'm honoured to receive this award for South Bank Boulevard Concept Plan on behalf of the City of Melbourne. This significant project establishes a series of new pedestrian and community-oriented spaces in the heart of Melbourne's arts precinct. The plan, led by City Design Studio, combines extensive community and stakeholder input to enhance livability, health and wellbeing in one of our densest neighbourhoods. Thank you, AUDA.
That concludes the announcement of the 2020 Australian Urban Design Award recipients. On behalf of the sponsoring institutes and the judging panel, I congratulate all the award winners. You can be justifiably proud of your achievement in receiving national recognition for your inspirational projects. These awards are Australia's peak urban design accolade, and I encourage everyone watching today, whether you are a practitioner, a researcher, or writer, to seek the same recognition for your project by submitting an entry in 2021. It's now my pleasure to welcome back David Williams, CEO of the Planning Institute of Australia, for some final remarks and to close this ceremony.
Wow, wasn't that impressive? And a joy to watch. With 64 nominations, 7 commendations and 5 winners, the Australian Urban Design Awards continue the tradition of recognising and celebrating urban design in its truly unique way. My sincere thanks to Malcolm and the judging panel for their dedication and expertise. My congratulations to those receiving commendations and awards. You should all be very proud, because your winning projects have been considered and awarded by acknowledged experts in architecture, planning, and landscape architecture, the 3 design disciplines that combine to create great urban design. And that's what makes these awards unique. My thanks to all of you for watching tonight's presentation. And until next time, good night.